Scene 4 brings the film to a quietly transformative emotional climax, beginning not with intimacy but with confrontation, and gradually reshaping that confrontation into a moment of recognition, solidarity, and unexpected connection between Laurie and Eva. The opening exchange is structured around intrusion and revelation, as Laurie arrives at Eva's door carrying the weight of a truth she believes will disrupt another woman's life. Her introduction is tentative but direct, positioning herself as both outsider and bearer of knowledge, someone who feels morally compelled to speak even as she anticipates judgment. Eva's initial confusion and guarded openness create a space where tension lingers, yet there is also an undercurrent of curiosity, a willingness to listen that subtly distinguishes her from the absent man at the center of the conflict. When Laurie declares that she is in love with Eva's husband, the expected narrative trajectory would typically lead toward rivalry, resentment, or emotional fragmentation between the two women. Instead, the film deliberately subverts this expectation, redirecting the emotional energy away from competition and toward a shared understanding of how both women have been positioned within a system shaped by male dishonesty and manipulation. Eva's response, revealing that her marriage is a practical arrangement rather than a romantic one, and that she identifies as a lesbian, immediately reframes the situation. This revelation dissolves the presumed rivalry and replaces it with an unexpected alignment, where both women recognize that they have been operating under incomplete or misleading narratives constructed by the same man. In this moment, the film critiques the cultural tendency to pit women against each other in matters of love, suggesting instead that such conflicts often obscure deeper truths about power, agency, and the structures that shape relationships. Laurie's shock gives way to a more complex emotional state, one that blends betrayal, embarrassment, and a dawning awareness of her own misperceptions. Eva, meanwhile, occupies a role that is both grounding and revelatory, offering Laurie not only information but also a different perspective on the situation. Her calm explanation of the arrangement and her acknowledgement of the man's patterns of deception create a sense of clarity that contrasts sharply with Laurie's earlier uncertainty. This dynamic introduces an important thematic shift, where the focus moves from individual romantic entanglement to a broader reflection on how women navigate systems that often prioritize male narratives over their own experiences. From a queer, emotionally grounded perspective, this shift is significant because it centers the relationship between the two women as the primary site of meaning, rather than treating them as peripheral figures in a story about a man. As Laurie processes the truth, her emotional response becomes a key point of connection between the two characters. Her frustration and sense of betrayal are met not with judgment but with empathy, as Eva reassures her and gently reframes the situation. This exchange highlights the potential for solidarity between women, particularly when they recognize shared experiences of being misled or undervalued. In queer readings, such moments often carry an additional layer of significance, as they create space for connections that might otherwise be obscured by heteronormative expectations. The conversation between Laurie and Eva becomes a form of emotional intimacy, built on honesty, vulnerability, and mutual recognition. It is within this space that the possibility of a different kind of relationship begins to emerge, one that is not defined by competition or obligation, but by choice and understanding. Eva's acknowledgement of Laurie's beauty and worth introduces a new dimension to their interaction, one that shifts the focus from what Laurie has lost to what she might gain. This moment is not presented as a sudden or superficial redirection of desire, but as a gentle invitation to reconsider how she sees herself and her options. For many queer women, such moments of recognition can be deeply resonant, reflecting experiences where validation from another woman opens the door to self-reflection and new forms of understanding. Laurie's earlier focus on the man who deceived her begins to recede, replaced by a growing awareness of the connection forming in front of her. This transition is handled with restraint, emphasizing emotional continuity rather than abrupt change. The film suggests that Laurie's openness to this connection is not simply a reaction to betrayal, but part of a broader process of self-discovery, where she begins to question the assumptions that have shaped her understanding of relationships. The progression of the scene, as Laurie chooses to remain with Eva rather than return to the situation she came from, carries symbolic weight. It represents a turning point not only in her immediate circumstances but in her broader trajectory, as she moves away from a dynamic defined by deception and toward one grounded in honesty and mutual respect. From a queer perspective, this movement can be read as a form of reorientation, where Laurie begins to align herself with her own emotional truth rather than external expectations. Importantly, the film does not frame this shift as a rejection of men in a simplistic or absolute sense, but rather as a response to a specific set of experiences that have led Laurie to reconsider what she values in a relationship. Eva's presence provides a model of authenticity and self-awareness, offering Laurie a glimpse of what it might mean to exist outside the constraints that have previously defined her choices. The dynamic between Laurie and Eva also reflects broader themes within queer communities, particularly the role of mentorship and the transmission of knowledge between women at different stages of self-understanding. Eva's confidence and clarity, contrast with Laurie's uncertainty, creating a dynamic where guidance is offered without coercion. This balance is crucial, as it allows Laurie to make her own decisions while still benefiting from Eva's perspective. In real-world contexts, such relationships can play an important role in helping individuals navigate questions of identity and belonging, providing support and validation in ways that may not be available elsewhere. The film captures this dynamic with nuance, avoiding reductive portrayals and instead emphasizing the complexity of these interactions. At the same time, the scene engages with the broader societal discomfort surrounding women's relationships with one another, particularly when those relationships move beyond clearly defined categories. By presenting Laurie and Eva's connection as emotionally grounded and mutually respectful, the film challenges the tendency to either dismiss or sensationalize such relationship. It insists on their legitimacy, treating them as meaningful and worthy of attention. This approach is especially significant in the context of Latina representation, where narratives about sexuality are often constrained by cultural expectations that prioritize traditional roles and relationships. By depicting a moment of connection that is both tender and transformative, the film expands the possibilities of representation, offering a more inclusive and nuanced portrayal of Latina women's experiences. The question of whether a more open society influences women to become lesbians is again reframed through the lens of this scene. Rather than suggesting that Laurie's shift is the result of external influence, the narrative emphasizes her agency and the role of self-recognition. The encounter with Eva does not create something new, so much as it reveals possibilities that Laurie may not have previously considered or felt able to explore. In this sense, openness allows for recognition rather than transformation, providing the conditions under which individuals can better understand themselves. This perspective aligns with broader queer theory, which emphasizes the importance of visibility and representation in shaping how people interpret their own experiences. Beyond its specific queer context, the scene resonates with universal themes of disillusionment, resilience, and the search for authenticity. Laurie's journey from betrayal to connection reflects a broader human experience of reevaluating one's assumptions and finding new paths forward. Eva's role in this process highlights the importance of empathy and openness, suggesting that meaningful connections often arise from moments of vulnerability and honesty. The film's emphasis on these qualities reinforces its commitment to portraying women's relationships with depth and respect, challenging viewers to engage with the material on an emotional rather than purely narrative level. Ultimately, Scene 4 serves as a culmination of the film's exploration of intimacy, recognition, and the quiet resilience of women-centered relationships. It brings together the themes introduced in earlier scenes, emphasizing the importance of seeing and being seen, of moving beyond prescribed roles to embrace a more authentic sense of self. By centering the connection between Laurie and Eva, the film offers a powerful counter-narrative to stories that prioritize conflict or sensationalism, instead presenting a vision of intimacy that is grounded in care, understanding, and mutual respect. This approach not only enriches the narrative, but also contributes to broader conversations about visibility and representation, affirming the value of stories that reflect the complexity and diversity of women's experiences.